A little bit about myself. I am a startup business development manager. So my role is to help startups scale and grow and become successful. I work actually out of Amsterdam. I cover primarily the Benelux, but I'm here to support you as well. So let me start by sharing my screen. Just a second. I'm gonna put up this. Can you tell me if you see the presentation?
We can see it perfectly.
Okay, great. So yeah, let's go ahead. I'm going to tell you a little bit about AWS, Amazon Web Services, which I think some of you or many of you might know, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about that, and then I'll tell you what we exactly do with startups. So first of all, just some background info of Amazon Web Services. So we have millions of active customers in the IT space, pretty much all over the world. What is relevant here is that startups are actually at the core of our strategy. So we put a lot of effort to the startups, and it actually comes down from the CEO. Startups are really at the center of what we do. They have always been. Some of the numbers, we have a global reach, which is from a startup perspective interesting, as this enables the startup to scale and launch the services pretty much anywhere in the world, independent of where their customers are. We have a really broad set of services. We have now 175 services in the platform, so pretty much any kind of a workload that you think you would be building, whether that's computing, databases, mobile, artificial intelligence, machine learning, virtual reality, augmented reality, IoT, robotics, or I don't know, satellite ground stations. All those services are available on AWS. And as a business, we have in 2019 we had a 40 billion run rate business, meaning the revenue multiplied by 12. And the monthly revenue, that is. And what is also kind of interesting is that as we scale, we can acquire technology at a lower cost. So we use this margin that we get to actually push that back to our prices. So our customers have seen us reduce our prices 80 times since the launch. So that's about AWS. What we really do is on-demand computing, power, database, and storage over the internet with a pay-as-you-go pricing, which basically means that you're only paying for the services that you use, and you don't need to invest into the hardware. And actually, we do a lot of serverless stuff where you don't even need to worry about the actual instances that are being deployed. So what it means for startups and how that helps startups stay lean. So first of all, there's zero upfront cost. You don't need to pay unless there's usage. And actually, we also support startups quite a lot with free credits. So even as they are scaling and building the services, they don't need to pay. They can launch much faster. So you can basically just push a button and spin up the instances. And this means that you can also experiment at a much lower risk. Because you don't need to invest to the infrastructure. If something doesn't work, you can just deprovision the servers and stop paying. And a lot of our services lift off sort of the need to manage the servers or the databases or the infrastructure, and you can actually focus on your core business value. So those are basically the main benefits of cloud when you think of it. And just something interesting. I think that this is just a fun fact. If you look at in the history what it meant to launch a startup in the late 90s, it cost around $5 million to build a startup and launch it. And this was primarily because you had to buy software, you had to buy the servers, and all that was expensive. Early 2000s, what really drove this down was a lot of open source technologies. And that pushed it down to around $500,000, which still is actually quite a lot of money to set up a startup. And then what was really drastic in 2006 was the cloud, and AWS was the first company to launch the cloud, and cloud actually pushed down the price more. There's a really interesting article which explains this a little bit more. The source is there in the bottom. I can email that later for everyone to see. So I mentioned that startups are at the core of our strategy, and we really, since sort of the launch of the AWS, while it was not really built with the mindset of let's go and provide services to startups, it was the startups who found us. And the previous slide that shows the graph kind of like explains why. So startups were, of course, agile to move, and they could easily start launching, and that was a low cost compared to buying your own server. So you could actually do a lot of trials and launch and deprovision if you didn't need it. And startups really found us, and some of those startups became really large. You can see some of them here. Startups like Pinterest, Slack, Airbnb, Uber is actually not mentioned here, but one of our startups as well. Lyft and so forth. So there's a lot of companies all around the world who have built successfully on AWS. And as a startup BD, what does that mean? So we work with the entire ecosystem, from really the university entrepreneurship programs to accelerators, incubators, co-working spaces, seed funds, early stage venture and late stage venture funds. As AWS, we say that the startup is what did I just do? Anything from a founder with an idea of starting to build something all the way up to until that company makes an IPO or an M&A. So that means that we have a lot of very early stage startups and also some companies that you might not actually consider a startup. We still see them as part of the startup segment. And the team is actually global. Most of the people in my team are former founders or former VCs, or they have somehow otherwise been in the startup ecosystem. I personally have been in 3 startups, sold the first one and raised 7 million to the second. So I have some experience on the founder path. And yeah, we really try to work with everyone in the startup ecosystem to help the startup companies grow, scale, and become successful. And very briefly, what do we do? So let's start what we don't do. We don't invest cash. There's actually one exception to this rule. We do have a fund that focuses on voice tech. It is an Alexa fund. I can talk a little bit about that. But we don't also take any capital position. So when we provide credits or anything, we don't take any position on the capital or anything on the IP of the company. Everything is actually owned by the startup. And what we then do is we invest virtual currency, and that is in the form of AWS credits. Startups have a program called Activate, under which the maximum over the course of the lifetime of the startup is $5,000. Sorry, $100,000. And when we start early, in this case, we are providing actually everyone here $5,000. The idea is that this $5,000 helps you build the product. As you grow, you can navigate in the services, start building the product. As you grow and spend that amount, we actually can continue to give you the remaining 95,000. The reason why we do it in steps is that the credits have a time period as they are valid, and the last portion of the 100K is valid only for 1 year, and it is not easy to spend 100K for an early stage startup on AWS. So we try to make sure that the founder can really spend the money, and it's just not a nice number on the account, but it's a real operating expense. And yeah, then we do a lot of things for startups. We open doors both internally and externally, both to customers, enterprises, but also to VCs and to capital. we really do a lot of things beyond just the technology to make sure that startups can succeed. And when we think about those two areas, there's the technical side, which is, I guess, quite obvious. We help with the architecture design, and we have tools to help customers optimize their environment. We do a lot of cost optimization to our existing customers. So our salespeople go to the account to try to think how they can reduce their bill, which I think is kind of a peculiar way of doing business and not that common. We also provide to some of our startups previews and betas of our new products. So we work quite a bit on the technical side. Also, what is very important for the startup is, of course, their customers. So we help startups with co-marketing. We can do proof of concept funding for startups. We do sales referrals. We help them distribute their products, whether it's a physical product or a software product. And then we do these VC intros and other type of capital intros that I mentioned. So on a very high level, these are our startup programs. I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm just going to go through sort of more the ones that are relevant for earlier stage startups. Some of these are relevant only after you have, for example, a product that is already in the market, has a certain amount of customers, and then we can help sell you that readily packaged product to more enterprises. Cool. So this is what I mentioned as the credit program. So AWS Activate is the main program for startups. We have several other ways to get credits, including marketing, proof of concept. There could be some service-specific credits. But AWS Activate is really only available for startups. And it starts with actually $1,000. This is something that we give for any startup. And it goes really, really broad. So any founder with an idea can apply and obtain $1,000 AWS credits that they can use to start building their idea. Then there's a step that is not mentioned on the slide, which is the $5,000. That is the one that we are offering here. After that comes the $10,000, which is for 2 years, $25,000, and the last one is the $100,000. Now, what is good to understand here is that this is the $100,000 is the total. So let's say that we interact with a later stage startup that has never been on Activate. They might get the $100,000 right away. An earlier stage that starts a journey with us starts, let's say, at $10K, which means that they would be eligible for $90K still within this program. So that's the way how the program works. And now here, I think you can see it quite well that by doing these different steps, for example, in this case, the maximum time that basically the startup could benefit from this is actually 7 years, assuming that they would grow, in these maximum periods of the programs. Cool. We also provide AWS support, which is our second highest tier. A lot of other benefits in this program, including go-to-market. So there's much more than just the AWS credits, but of course, I, as a former founder, know that that's one of the more important ones, as that cuts off your operating expense and IT expenditure directly. Cool. So this is the one that I mentioned, which is eligible for this program, and I will get back to Jana later next week to provide actual instructions how to apply for this. But this is $5,000 for all the startups, which is valid for 24 months, and then also $1,500 AWS business support credits. And in our business support, it's our second highest tier of support. You can also use that for architecture related evaluation questions. And what you can basically do with this one is, for example, just showing here one small example of the machine learning side. So you can use the credits for all of our services. This is what our machine learning stack looks like. We have here in the bottom, we have a framework level where we support all the major frameworks, and you can launch your product on various type of instances, graphics processors or FPGAs, or you can go to IoT to really do something on the edge. SageMaker helps basically any developer design machine learning models, and then on the top we have AI services that you can actually directly interact with, call them with an API. We have their image recognition and video recognition. You can extract text or have text-to-speech or speech-to-text, transcribe language translation. We have Comprehend, which actually understands the meaning of the text. We also have a Comprehend for medical text, chatbot, forecasting, and then recommendation engine. And this recommendation engine, for example, is based on how Amazon.com does recommendations for their consumer customers. So there's a lot of technology here, and actually Transcribe and Polly are then again used by our Alexa devices. Cool. Just quickly showing here kind of like a slide, but we do have a lot of machine learning. So if that is of your interest, we can definitely support you in this space. Something for you to know is that we provide various tools to actually make sure that you build correctly in the cloud and follow the best practices. So one of those is well-architected review. It is a tool that you can use to verify that your architecture that you build is secure, it has high performance, it's resilient, it's cost optimized, and scalable. So this is something that we provide here. Connections is our program where once you have a product, we actually connect startups to enterprise customers. So we have a list of enterprises who are seeking startup solutions to build their services, and then we connect the startups who have those solutions with the enterprise, and that creates a meeting where both the enterprise wants to meet the startup has a product for the enterprise, and more importantly, there's an actual project where the startup's product could actually be taken into use. This is not necessarily for the earlier stage, but I wanted to show this as well, that you get an idea what we do going forward. Then AWS Marketplace is one of our distribution services. You can think this almost like an app store for enterprises. So 140,000 AWS customers can deploy software from AWS Marketplace. This again requires that the product needs to be fully production ready. We help startups get visibility for their products on AWS Marketplace, and this is a really easy way for your customers to take the software into use, and everything is actually very seamless for them. And then if any of you is thinking about building something that has a device in it, and specifically a device with the B2C mindset, we have a program called Launchpad. You can actually go and see what products are there by just going to amazon.com/launchpad. It's actually supported by multiple countries, amazon.fr for France/launchpad, or amazon.de/launchpad, and so forth. And there you will see a lot of innovative products from startups, Kickstarter projects, Indiegogo, or even Shark Tank products, and a lot of others. This is something where we really help startups who have a physical product to get to market, to get to multiple markets, and basically sell under the Amazon brand and umbrella. And again, this is something we do the third-party selling also on Amazon. normal retail, but this Launchpad is a specific program where we give much more support for the startups who might not yet have a super large business. We treat them very, very differently than sort of traditional SMBs. And then I mentioned Alexa Fund, showing it here in case you have some ideas of building something on the voice tech area. So Alexa Fund is our only equity investment tool, and we invest to startups. We give also early access to voice tech products, and of course do a lot of marketing support and development support for these topics. So if this is something of interest, I can definitely take that with you and explain it a bit more. And also we have an accelerator under this Alexa, similar but on a little bit earlier stage, and this is something that we do together with Techstars in the US. So this is actually a brief overview of AWS, what we do for startups. There's an AWS Summit. Seems that there's some kind of interesting thing on the AWS logo. But AWS Summit, which I think is something that you should actually consider attending. It's a free to attend summit. It was initially so that we do these summits in major cities throughout the Europe, but because of the current situation, we made that an online event, and now it is for the whole of the EMEA. We are expecting around 40,000 people into this event, so it should be really interesting online experience as well. There will be 55 different sessions, 11 tracks, specific sections for startups, both technical and business events, Ask an Expert booth, and a lot of other things. There's a link below that I can also email after this, so you can go and register to the event. So this was my presentation on AWS, so happy to answer any questions that you may have.